Hola, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a todos a
Good
los
afternoon.
encuentros TCM
Welcome
Zinemaldia un
everyone
año más.
to the
Le
TCM
cambio por aquí para que
meetings.
nos suene, que decía que bienvenidos a todos a los
I
encuentros
would
TCM
like to
Zinemaldia un
welcome
año
you
más.
to these
Veo algunas
meetings once
caras
again.
conocidas de
Like
otros
every
años
year, I
y
see
veo
many
algunas caras
faces
desconocidas
that
que
I
espero
know
que
from
pronto
years
sean también
before,
nuestros amigos.
and
Yo estoy un poco
I see
nervioso
also
porque el
new
primer día
faces.
siempre es
I'm
un
a
poco
little
lío,
bit
¿verdad?
nervous. The first day
Pero venía
always
pensando
makes
una
me a
cosa,
little
¿no?,
bit
que me
nervous.
tranquiliza mucho,
But
y es
there's
que yo creo que
something
ahora
that
en todo el
makes
mundo
me
no hay un
feel
lugar tan pequeño con tanta
better,
concentración de talento
because
como el que hay
I
hoy
feel that
aquí en el
in
Club
this
Victoria Eugenia.
small room there is
Así
always the
que, para
highest
empezar, para
concentration
quitar sobre todo
possible
mis nervios, vamos a
in
recibir,
talent,
hablaba yo de
and that's
talento,
why I would
la
like to
prueba
show you the
la tenemos
talent we
aquí,
have
en
gathered
todos los equipos que
together
tenemos hoy, y vamos a recibirles,
today,
para quitar sobre todo mis
sitting
nervios,
here in
a todos
front of
ellos
me,
con un
and we
fortísimo
would like to
aplauso.
welcome all of them with a big applause.
Hello. Hi. Bienvenidos.
Welcome.
If you wanted to have, you have translation here, but otherwise you can deal with English. So, bueno, pues nuestra primera película de hoy se titula
The first film
Square.
today, we
tenemos
are
al
talking
equipo de la película,
about the
encabezado
Square.
por Ruben Oslund.
We
No,
have
que
here
está bien,
Ruben
está bien, está muy
Oslund.
bien. So, Ruben Oslund es el director
Ruben
del
Oslund
movie,
is
el director de la película. La película
He's
que
the
ganó
director
la
of the
Palma de
movie,
Oro en el Festival de
and
Cannes.
he
the
won
movie,
the Golden
film
Palm
that
in the
won
Cannes
the Palme
Festival.
d'Or in Cannes Film Festival. Yo no sé,
And
Ruben,
I don't know
how your life has changed after winning the Palme d'Or. No sé cómo ha cambiado
how
su vida
your life
después
has
de la
changed
Palma de
after
Oro. ¿A mejor o a peor?
winning
For the best or for
the
the
Palm.
worst?
Is it better or worse?
No, but it has been very pleasant, of course. But it's also, I would say, it's like, it's how do you say? It's a German expression actually that it's a pleasure, but it's also like a trap in that way. So it's a lot of like requests and things that you are going on, and it's not always that you go on like a beautiful festival like San Sebastian. But you go a lot of like distributors. I want you to do press and things like that. A lot of work actually, but also a lot of people that are happy. So it's a great pleasure, of course.
That's because you are a star now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bueno, yo vi la película ayer y desde entonces
I saw the film yesterday, and since then I haven't stopped thinking about the richness of this film. It's full of different details, different interpretations. For those who couldn't watch the film, we will see a short clip of it.
For at komme ind på udstillingen, så skal man tage stilling til, om man er et menneske, som har tillid til andre mennesker, eller om man er et menneske, som ikke har tillid til andre mennesker.
Welcome to the jungle. Soon you will be confronted by a wild animal. As you all know, the hunting instinct is triggered by weakness. If you show fear, the animal will sense it.
Ahí veíamos algunas imágenes de la película.
I've seen some images of the film. At the beginning we saw the main character.
The director of a modern art museum. El director, el personaje principal es el director.
The main character is the director of a modern art museum or contemporary art museum.
The character is based in people that you have already known or have already met in the art world. Le pregunto si, bueno, no sé si se me está, la verdad es que no sé si me están traduciendo, me imagino que sí. So, well,
I would say that the character is very much based on myself. Yeah. So all the embarrassing situations that he's experiencing, I have experienced also, or some of them friends of mine have experienced. So, but I always try to think like that, you know, that I should be able to relate to all the characters in the movie. Yeah, in order to also make it believable, you know, is it possible to act like this? Is it possible for me as a human being to do like the main character is doing here? So much rather than thinking of the main character as someone that is outside yourself, I think of, okay, is it possible for me to do this? And sometimes I answer that question, it's not possible for me to do this. And then you can change the setup of the scene to make it possible. Now it's possible for me to also act in this stupid way, you know? So that's like really what I'm aiming for. So I always relate to him through myself.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of critics in the movie, but I'm not quite sure if you started from the critics or the critics have been a kind of consequence of the story.
How do you mean the critics?
The critics, you're very critical with the modern art, very critical with the hypocrisy. But watching the film, I don't know if you started from wanting to make a critic or the critic was a kind of consequence.
I consider my movies satirical, that they are satire, and I think that no one is getting away. So the art world or the main character, or you look at something that you find in contemporary time and then you twist it a couple of times. And I mean, I think that one of my big heroes is Buñuel, and I think that one of the greatest film titles ever is the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. I think it's a beautiful title. And I think I have the same kind of approach to all the characters in my movies and the setup in the movies. Why should I look at art world and think it's, oh, how beautiful things are in the art world? Of course, you have to point out the things that you don't like about it in order to make it better. Or satire is like, it's something that I really, really like about satire, that we can look at something in contemporary time and then twist it in order to make us reflect on how we are behaving.
Josephine, ella es la escenógrafa de la película. Me pregunto si ella ha creado.
I was asking myself if you created the artwork that is shown in the film.
On the film?
Yes, me and Ruben, we came up with some ideas, but we also worked with we found an artist that we liked very much, and he borrowed us some art pieces that we used in the film. And we were also inspired when we built the piles of chairs. That was from a painting he did. So, yeah.
the piles of gravel you did, right?
Yeah. Yes, the mirror and piles of gravel. And the mirrors are inside the piles of gravel.
Nos acompaña el director de fotografía de cinematographer.
We also have the cinematographer with us.
What was like the work with you have worked before with him? Because I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, we started working, the three of us together on the previous film that Ruben did called Force Majeure. Well, it's very fun and hard work working with Ruben because he's very meticulous and he's interested in all aspects of the image, and so it's not only the acting, but it's also very much the lighting or the details in the from the art department. But it's also very rewarding because of that, I find, because he takes it very sort of serious.
Ruben, I wanted to ask you about the square. The square, in fact, existed before the film, the installation.
Yeah, I mean, the whole project started with a friend of me, Kalle Boman, he's like 73 years old, and we have been working together on my first feature film, and he has been a film producer for a long time. But we had the idea of creating a symbolic place where we should be reminded of our role as fellow human beings. And we wanted to create something that was just as simple as a pedestrian crossing. You know, a pedestrian crossing is something quite beautiful, that with a couple of lines in the street, we actually have made an agreement that car drivers should be careful with the pedestrians. Isn't it fantastic that we actually accept these rules and we agree on it?
Not always here, eh?
Is it like that? Okay, but I think that it feels like they accept it quite good here also. But the idea was like, you know, in order to remind us of like humanistic values and humanistic topics, to make something that is just as simple as a traffic sign. Not making it a political movement, not making it a question between the left wing and the right wing, not making it a religious question, you know, like, because religion and politics have been a way of reminding us of humanistic topics for a long time, but trying to approach the humanistic topics in a new way. And that was like the idea of the square. And they built this square in 4 cities, 2 cities in Sweden. It exists in Värnamo in Sweden, and also in Göteborg, where I live. They have made a square in a park that is in the center of the city. And 2 cities in Norway, in Grimstad and Vestfossen. And yeah, so it's like it's a creative common project. You know what that is? That there's no rights in it. Everyone can do it if they want to do it, and how it should be built, they have to decide themselves in the cities. We can say how we built the other ones, but just by making these square, that it could be like a reminder. We can actually behave in a different way towards each other. So that was the idea.
Bueno, pues no sé si aquí hay alguien influyente del Ayuntamiento.
I don't know if someone from the City Hall San Sebastian is present here, but it would be nice for them to hear to your input, to listen to your input. And maybe they can build a square like this in San Sebastian. Thank you very much for your film. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope you can come later with a new feature film of your own. Thank you.
Bueno, pues en nuestro viaje de cada tarde, hoy no nos vamos a alejar mucho. El viaje no ha sido muy largo porque venimos de Suecia,
which is not very far away. We leave Sweden and we arrive to
la
Denmark.
película de la que vamos a hablar es la que ha inaugurado
going to talk about
la sección Nuevos Directores.
belongs to the new directors section, and it's called The Charmer. And we have with us his director and main performer.
O algo absolutamente parecido. Bueno, Mila, cuentas la historia.
You are talking about. Can you hear the translation?
Cuentas en la película la historia
in your
de
film,
un
you're talking
inmigrante
about an Iranian man who is living in Denmark, and he's making a great effort to stay there, to remain in Denmark. You come from Iran, and I suppose you live in Sweden or Denmark, and you can relate to that character somehow in your experience.
Sí, es que siempre me lo dejo. Sorry, it was my fault. But the translators could have some problems.
No, I think that my story is very different from the main character. You know, it's I came to Sweden when I was 6 years old and lived in the north of Sweden. I think this story about our main character is completely different. It's much more like contemporary now, and how the situation looks now for immigrants. And so I think parts of him, of course, you know, I identify myself with. You know, when we were writing the script, I think there was some things I could like understand, this kind of, you know, identity thing, you know, but I think it's mostly based in fiction.
Como decíamos, el protagonista es un personaje iraní, un inmigrante iraní que
So
trata
this
de
is
sobrevivir en
an
Dinamarca,
Iranian
sobre todo,
character
seduciendo mujeres.
that is
Vamos a
living
verlo.
in Denmark, and he is devoted to women. Let's watch some clip.
Bueno, ahí veíamos la piscina. al
We could see
protagonista,
the
al
swimming
bailarín.
pool there,
De
and the
este
main
personaje,
character in
Alain,
there.
sabemos muy
This
poco.
character
El espectador va
is not
intuyendo
giving
cosas,
many data
pero en realidad
to the
sabe muy
audience.
poco.
We don't
Yo no
know
sé si para
much
un
about him,
actor componer
and
este
I don't know
personaje
if it
es
is difficult
complicado
for the
porque tienes que
performer
mostrar,
to
pero al
compose
mismo tiempo tienes que
this
ocultar muchas
character,
cosas.
because you
¿Cómo
have
fue
to
este trabajo?
show many things, but you have to hide many things as well.
Yeah, that was the biggest challenge for me, because as a person, private person, I'm very expressive and talk a lot, and you know, do a lot of things with my face. And this was a character that I had to like always keep my what do you call it, impulses, drown my impulses in some kind of way. And I couldn't say so much because she didn't write so much dialogue for me. And the scenes were really described really good and poetic, I think. So that gave me a lot of, the first time I read it, I just got the feeling that I know how to play this. And that was also because we're in a state right now in Europe and Sweden, and as an Iranian person, I've been really struggling with my own, thinking of my own existence in a place like Sweden. in these last years. So there was a lot of feelings around this theme, and I have family that's been going all over the world now. So for me, I just sensed it. I just felt it right away when I read the script. So in some ways it was easy, but some ways it was really hard because to not really show nothing, you know, and some points in the film, everything blows up. So just spare those moments for those moments. And that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Ella, como decíamos antes, es la guionista de la
We
película.
also have the scriptwriter here with us.
Esto de no ser parte de la cultura
You don't belong to the Iranian culture, and how was it for you to write a script in a culture that is not your own? Was it an advantage or a disadvantage?
I think it was okay, because sort of like Ruben said, you have to connect with every character, and you sort of imagine what this feeling is of being in a small environment or being a stranger. And I think what we talked about a lot is sort of this feeling of never fitting in, and he's sort of losing himself. He has to be someone when he's trying to fit in, even in the Iranian community everywhere. So it's sort of about this feeling of getting trapped. And because Milad was there, I always felt if I put something in that's like off, you know, we'll take it out. So I didn't feel, I mean, I obviously wouldn't have written this on my own, going out talking about this community. But because, you know, everyone was there, it didn't feel like like a stretch.
La película tiene un tono tranquilo, pero yo
The film is very quiet, very calm and poetic, but after the film I felt a little bit pessimistic because the character could be saved in a way, but it's not clear, and I was also impacted by those families that are close to the culture in a very artificial way or in a very idealistic way. It's a kind of criticism in your film, isn't it?
Well, if I understand what the question, I think, you know, for me it was, you know, I wanted to do like this thing also, like it's different for Iranians living in Denmark. Their like image of Iran is almost like a you know, romantic dream, and that's why I think that there's a kind of criticism in it, because the main character, he's lived in Iran, you know, that's where he lives, that's where, you know, most of his identity is. But all the people he meets in Denmark that has something to do with the kind of past and this kind of, you know, fantasy of, I think, of course, there's a criticism there that, you know, they're maybe holding, you know, this dream alive that's maybe just a dream, not so much reality.
Mm-hmm. Como decíamos al principio,
as we were saying at the beginning, the film is shown in the section of new directors, and we have the producer with us as well. Was it difficult to produce this film?
Yes, I think if you go to the film institutes, the distributors, and say we've got a film with an immigrant as a main character, they don't jump up and down with joy, to be honest.
Even if he's.
But we've been very fortunate that we have a system in Denmark where there's a lot of belief and support for first-time directors. So through a talent scheme at the Danish Film Institute, we were able to make this film with a lot of freedom. And then as we went along and made the film and people could see the qualities in it, then suddenly it was much easier to back us up. So that's fortunately that's where we are today. But no, it hasn't been easy.
Bueno, no ha sido fácil, pero yo creo que ahora estáis en el principio.
It was not easy, but here it is. You have achieved your goal, and the film is in the film festival in San Sebastian. So congratulations, and thank you very much for being with us.
Bueno, y ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estáis? ¿Qué tal? Voy a por los micros, que me los dejo siempre.
Hello, I always forget the microphone.
Decía yo que, bueno, en esta especie como de Torre de Babel, ahora vamos a probar con el portuñol.
Now we are going to Portugal, so we are going to speak a mixture of Spanish and Portuguese.
Una película que yo calificaría
today a kind of documentary film, but it's not a documentary film, it's an essay filled with documentary images from May 68, documentary images from your mother, a trip that she made to China. And it is filmed in Super 8, and I would like to know why. Is it a way of reflecting on this trip, or why were you interested in this very specific type of iconography? Do you play with the character of your mother and May 68? Why is it? My mother visited China in 1966 when the Chinese Revolution started, so the political temperature was very similar to May 68 in France, which was very much influenced by what happened in China during the Cultural Revolution. And the film is a kind of reflection about intensity and what happens when intensity is awakened. How to find meaning in life afterwards, when one has gone through something that has been very intense, in this case a political situation that was very passionate, and that arises a cultural and aesthetic and erotic passion at the same time. So afterwards it becomes very difficult to continue life, because life goes on and one has to adapt, but this thrill is over. And I also wanted to show these images of 1968. Yes, in the film, at a certain moment, it's said that people participating in May 1968, they had a kind of early nostalgia. And I feel that the film is also very nostalgic. Why? Well, I think nostalgia in this case is like death. Those who lived May 68 got trapped in that experience. It's like the story of my mother, out of different reasons, but it's the same experience. She had a very strong impact during that period, and then it became very difficult for her to continue life, to continue walking in life. It becomes a reactionary passion in a way. And this nostalgia in the film is due to the fact that I reflect on what my mother lost at that time. It's something that belongs to the past, and it's good that it belongs to the past. Kong Beng-ji is one of the leaders of May 68, and he said it is necessary to kill May 68. It was very important at that time, but now we need to recover the spirit in a different way, not in the same way, and this is always a problem. Let's watch some clips. We will see some documentary films, but also images from your mother's trip.
Minha mãe e seus amigos tentam espiar dentro de templo fechado pelos guardas vermelhos. A seu lado, os cartazes dizem: saudações aos jovens guerreiros que protegem as relíquias culturais do templo de Ling In.
One question, where did you discover these images? Was it a surprise, or did you know about its existence? In my previous image, I needed some family pictures, and I was looking for them, and I found some 8mm pictures with the images of my mother's trip to China. This was during the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution started in May, and she arrived in China in October, so there was already about 1 million young people there, and she was very conservative. She was the opposite way, so she met something there that was completely opposite to her experience, to her way of being and doing things. And I was very interested in that contrast. She was very afraid and scared at the beginning, but then she realized that it was a unique experience and she was delighted. We also have the producer with us. I suppose that one of the most difficulties you found was to get in the rights for all the images. Yes, there was one person in charge of research, and his work was amazing. And we had to contact over 30 archives in France, in China, in Israel, in Prague, because there are many images in personal archives too. And that second part with the personal archives was more difficult. But this person who was in charge of this research work did a wonderful job, and the way of producing this film was different. So it was not there was no actual shooting. It was more research and work with the archives. It was very interesting. The images from Paris are very interesting because they show a socialist spirit. But that was in May '68, and it's over. And now, even if the spirit they were shot with was a socialist one, and they wanted to share everything, now you have to pay these images for a very, very high price. So this is a kind of contradiction. They don't belong to everyone, although the story of that time belongs to history and belongs to everyone, but now they are subjected to copyrights and you have to pay for them. So revolution didn't happen in the end. Revolution didn't happen. You're right. Thank you very much for being with us and for this very interesting picture. It's a very personal reflection on revolution. Thank you very much for your film, and I wish you have a lot of success.
Y hoy nos ha salido un programa así que está como bastante relacionado, ¿no? Geográficamente.
We are moving geographically to France, which is close to Portugal. She is the daughter of the director of the film, L'Amant de Jour, and we would like to welcome her. Your father, he couldn't come. No, he's working, so he couldn't come, I'm afraid. And every 1 year and a half or second year, he films a new picture, so he's filming now.
Es de sobra conocido, tuvo una retrospectiva aquí en el Festival de San Sebastián.
Your father is very well known in the film festival. We offered him a retrospective some years ago, and he is a very important person in the French cinema. And now you are the main character in one of his films. I don't know if a film with your father's reflections on love and a couple, can you identify with that, because you're much younger than him? Well, I think he reflects youth very well. He's always reflecting on youth. In every film he made, he's showing different aspects of youth from different points of view. So this is the third film of a trilogy. The three of them are filmed in black and white, and the first one was the jealousy, then the funny ties, and then this last one. And these three films These three films correspond to Freudian analysis. In the first one, he talks about the female neurosis, the second one about lust, and the second one about communication, female communication. So this deals with a young woman who goes to visit his father to find that he has a very young girlfriend. Let's watch some clips.
Bueno, tiene un disgustazo, la chica.
So she's suffering a lot.
La película no solo habla de gente joven que no es de la generación
your father is talking about young people who doesn't belong to his generation, and he's also dealing with women or talking about women. How does he do it? How can he relate to women being a man and to a young generation to which he doesn't belong? Well, he works with scriptwriters. He doesn't work alone by himself. And there are two women and one man, Jean-Claude Carrière and Caroline Lauriesque and Anne-Laure Dagerian. And he writes like in a playful way. He gives some mission to these scriptwriters and he asks them to write different scenes. She knows about the storyline, but she asks the scriptwriters to write different scenes without knowing the storyline. And he also writes his scene himself, and then he takes the 4 different scenes written by different people, and then he cuts and pastes different parts, so that in the end the scene is a mix of the different aspects. So it is in fact women who created these scenes. How is it to work with your father? I suppose production is very fast with him, and I would like to know how it was for you to work with your father. Well, it is a special thing. I have to say that in our family we talk a lot about work, we talk a lot about cinema, and we decided to work together. Each by our side, we decided to work together. So it was not something that came up. It was a very conscious decision. And he works with a lot of rehearsing and with one shot. And in 10 months, we met 30 times every weekend. And we were rehearsing, we were testing different scripts, and we read the different scripts many times so that I could memorize the text. And in all the rehearsals, he asked us to reread the script, to relearn what we already know. And this helps us to get tainted with the character and with the dialogues. He talks about the reflection memory. And it is what happens when someone gives you your line, your answer comes immediately because you don't reflect it, you just answer automatically since you have been reading the script so much. And many people think that being an interpreter, being a performer means reflection, but the thing is, you have to reflect at the beginning, in the first stage of the process, but then you have to react immediately, and this is something you cannot share with anyone. This is very personal. You have also shot films with your brother, so are you going to continue working with your family? Oh, we don't know about that. I am in other projects that are not my father, sisters or my brothers. I work with other actors and actresses, and we don't have a kind of contract or pact. And yesterday, your other film was shown, so congratulations 2 times, because you are showing here 2 different films. And congratulations to your father too. Give him our best regards. We are missing him in this festival this year.
Bueno, y hoy tengo que dar otra vuelta,
llegar
hasta aquí porque tenemos 6 equipos, muchísimo talento, como decíamos al principio. Ella es la representante de la película Shame, viene de Bulgaria, la producción es búlgara, un mediometraje, y ella es la productora de la película.
She is the producer of the film. It is a very hard story about a child that doesn't accept that his mother is a janitor. What is the origin of the story, and what was difficult for you when you tried to start the project?
Hello, everyone. I don't know how the story originated. It's probably in the head of the writer and director, Peter, who I'm so sorry couldn't come. It is the first film he has done after film school, and he was thrilled to be invited in San Sebastian, and then devastated that he couldn't come. He is working on a feature film as first assistant. He couldn't desert the work he does. I thought you said the film is a hard story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it as that. Probably his childhood, the protagonist's childhood, is not easy, not bright. But what I liked about Peter's approach to this is his way of observing, finding details, and analyzing, not judging, and not criticizing, leaving this to everybody to see for himself. And I appreciate this a lot in filmmakers, in directors, because it gives more ways of interpretation. It's too self-conceited to think that you can say what is the right, what is the wrong, what is... I didn't have any difficult times. The film was not, by the way, financed by any institution. We were lucky to get some support from friends and from studios pro bono. So it was a very easy way. When the director knows what he's doing, it's easy for the producer.
Shame, una historia del paso de la infancia a la adolescencia. Vamos a verla.
Shame is a story of adolescence. Let's watch some images.
Ζουμέλε.
Ευχαριστώ, Λέτη.
Δεν τρώγεται.
Να τρώω να με ρίχνει να περάσει.
Ahí veíamos al protagonista absoluto de esta historia.
We could see the main character. He is the absolute protagonist of the story. And where did you find the actor? Because the film without him wouldn't be possible. Where did you meet him?
Peter went to schools, not necessarily in the center of the city. I think he went to more than 40 schools, not only in the suburbs of Sofia, but to a town like 30 kilometers away, where we actually shot the film. this big building is a school, believe it or not, in this very miserable, otherwise surrounding. It was built in the old time. Now they use like 5 classrooms there. And he did a very intense casting for everyone. They're not professional actors, obviously. So it was his talent to somehow sense the naturalness. He just, it was in a way a golden egg, a golden hen, what is it saying? It was the guy that makes the film.
¿Y la decisión de rodar en blanco y negro?
And why did he decide to shoot in black and white?
I wish he was here to answer more from his heart, because what I say will be logical answer, and after discussing with him. But I supported this decision because I think that it is the simplicity somehow of the things that are in the boy's head. Either you are not a janitor and everything will come in place. Either I have a motorcycle and then the girl likes me. So it somehow is very graphic, very simple, though the reality is so complicated and so intricate, actually.
Comentaba que Peter está trabajando como asistente de director en la
You are saying that he is first assistant in another feature film. Do you know about his next project? Do you think that after this film he will be able to do more projects?
I hope so. When I changed places, I sat in Ruben Oswald's chair. I wished myself, Peter, this is for you. I sit in the chair of a Golden Palm winner. I wish you to reach there too.
Pues ojo, porque aquí hay magia, ¿eh? Aquí han pasado cosas muy raras en este espacio, o sea que probablemente seguro que esto le va a dar muchísima suerte para su siguiente proyecto. Eso sí, lo tiene que traer aquí.
Don't doubt it, it might happen. And we hope to see him again
Muchísimas
next
gracias.
year in another section. Thank you very much.
Bueno, ¿cómo estáis?
Well,
Nuestra última parada de
hello,
hoy
how are you?
es
Our
una
last
película, una
stop
producción
today
española,
is a
es un
Spanish
documental
film. It's a
sobre
documentary
el fotógrafo
film
Alberto García
about the
Alix.
photographer
Ellos son
Alberto
Nicolás
García
Combarro, que es el
Alix,
director de la
and we
película,
have with us
y
Nicolás
Miguel Ángel
Combarro,
Delgado,
the film
que es
director,
productor y
and
director de
the
fotografía.
producer and
Bienvenidos, muchísimas gracias, Alberto,
photographer
nos ha traído a venir.
Miguel Ángel Delgado. Thank you
Pero
very
bueno,
much
tenemos
for
ahí
coming.
su ausencia llena mucho también.
And
Creo que vosotros habíais trabajado ya
think
mucho con
you
Alberto García
have
Alix,
been working
conocéis muy
with
bien su
Alberto
obra.
García Alix
Tú, Nicolás,
for a
habías
long time. You, Nicolás, had been a curator of some of his exhibitions, and I found curious that you decided to shoot a documentary film because it is a kind of autobiography, and we thought that we could know him very well through his work because his work is very autobiographic. But watching the film, I realized that there are many aspects we didn't know. Yes, in fact, if you watch his work, you know one face of Alberto. But as a curator, I had worked very closely with him and with his work. And I always thought to myself, yes, it is fascinating, but the other side that you don't see from him is fascinating too, and I wanted to show it. Let's watch it.
Soy fotógrafo. Si ayer fotografiaba silencio, hoy fotografío mi propia voz. Este viaje tejido sobre una memoria de luces, destellos, ilusiones ópticas, persigue una revelación. Un puente.
Bueno, eso es un viaje que se hace en la película.
This is a trip in the film.
Me ha sorprendido muchísimo la película.
And I was surprised in the film by the way he talks about himself, about his life and his work in a very open way. He also talks about his addiction to heroin. How did you bring him to talk so openly? Well, I've been working with him for over 15 years, and we had many conversations like the ones I show in the film. And many times we were at his place, at his home, and we were having this kind of conversation, so it came natural to us. He is a great narrator. I was surprised by him describing so well many things. And he's a great narrator. Yes, he is. Well, I knew it already. Alberto is a great narrator, but he's not only able to narrate through images in his photography work, but also through words. And it is wonderful to listen to him, how he explains his work and his life. Miguel Ángel, to make photographs of a photographer must be very hard. Well, truth to be told, we were discussing a lot about how to focus on the film, but I knew exactly what was the image I was looking for, what was the kind of photography I wanted to have. I wanted the film to be black and white, to have a close relationship to his work, because his photographies are black and white too. And I wanted to make a very continuous line between his work and the film, so that Alberto could narrate in a very natural way without being interrupted by the change of image. And this was the main idea in the film. He is used to direct and to control, so how was it for him to be passive? We had to negotiate. We negotiated a lot with him. We let him decide on the first sequence. This was a story that he had already told us many times and belonged to him in a way. So we allowed him to construct the images in that sequence, to build up. And then we took these images away and started with our own. I suppose he has watched the film. Was he happy? What did he say about it? He has watched the whole film, of course, and he's a little bit reluctant because the film is very intimate, and I suppose it could happen to any of us. And he was not allowed to decide what to cut or not. Of course, we discussed things with him, but he was not allowed to decide. In the film, there is a very long interview with him, but there were different photography sessions recorded too. And how was it? I suppose it has to be thrilling to see the master at work. Yes, of course. It's not the first time that I have the opportunity to be in one of his photography sessions, and it's a wonderful experience. And I have learned from him how he focuses the view, the point of view, the image. And he is very spontaneous in portraits too. Alberto Garcia is here in San Sebastian, but he couldn't come here to the meetings. And I hope he can be in another space to talk with the public. Yes, he will be this afternoon in San Telmo Museum, presenting an exhibition that was prepared for the museum. So Reina Sofía in Madrid, and this exhibition has a more lyric perspective than our film. Okay, so I invite the public to go to the exhibition this afternoon. Thank you very much for your wonderful work, and I'm very happy to have watched it because it discovered many things for me. Thank you very much for coming.
Hemos hecho el primer viaje, pero nos quedan bastantes otros porque durante toda la semana nos podemos ver aquí a las 2 en los encuentros TCM Zinemaldia. Hasta mañana.
Meetings every day. See you tomorrow.
Muchas gracias.